Good evening. Welcome to the Mind of STEM channel, where you get your daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. My name is Leon Jones, and during this segment, I'm going to talk about food safety regulations. Food safety regulations. Now, it is very important that you listen to this content because during this holiday season, a lot of us are cooking food. And food is very good, but it can also be fatal. It can also make you sick if you don't use the proper procedures. So I share my screen and we'll talk about food safety regulations. And this information comes to you from Servsafe. And if you are in the restaurant industry, you're going to be dealing with food. If you're going to be managing, you have to take the Servsafe examination, which I'm end up taking the test again. I just missed it by 2 questions. But it's very important to understand that the FDA sets all of the food standards. Now, the objectives. We're going to identify government agencies that regulate food operations. We're also going to look at the importance of regulatory inspections and self-inspections, the key components of an inspection, corrective actions to take when found to be in violation of a regulation. See, a number of individuals in the food service industry believe that the health inspector is not on your side. No, the health inspector is on your side. They want you to make your establishment food safety conscious because they have to eat as well. So, government agencies responsible for preventing foodborne illness. Again, I just gave it to you. The FDA, that is the Food and Drug Administration. What they do, they inspect all food except meat, poultry, and eggs. The USDA deals with the meat, poultry, and eggs, the US Department of Agriculture. The FDA also regulates food that's going to be transported across state lines, and they issue the FDA Food Code. Now, the FDA Food Code contains federal recommendations for food safety regulations created for city, county, state, and tribal agencies that regulate restaurants and retail food stores, vending operations, schools and daycare centers, hospitals, and nursing homes. It is required, but not required to be used by states. Again, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, known as the USDA, they regulate and inspect meat, poultry, and eggs. They regulate food that crosses state boundaries or involves more than one state. You also have the CDC, and we know about the CDC due to the fact of the 19. Now, the Disease Control and Prevention, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Actually, when I was down in Atlanta, we drove right by it. Very big complex. Now, the CDC, it's the agency of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And what CDC does, they assist the FDA, USDA, and state and local regulatory authorities by providing these services. The investigating of outbreaks of foodborne illnesses. They study the causes of control of disease. They also publish statistical data and case studies in the Morbidity and Mortality or Mortality Weekly Report. That's the MMWR, which is Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. They provide educational services in the field of sanitation. They also conduct the vessel sanitation program, which is an inspection program for cruise ships. We also have the PHS, known as the Public Health Service. They assist the FDA, USDA, and state and local regulatory authorities. They conduct research into the causes of foodborne illness outbreaks. They also assist in investigating outbreaks. Now, when it comes to state and local regulatory authorities, they inspect operations, they enforce regulations, they investigate complaints and illnesses, they issue licenses and permits, they approve construction, and they review and approve HACCP plans. I'll get into that in another video. Now, the state and local regulatory authorities write or adopt food codes that regulate retail and food service operations. Food codes can differ widely by state or locality. They also enforce regulations through different systems, such as in large cities, the local regulatory authority will probably be responsible. In smaller cities or rural areas, a county or state regulatory authority may be responsible. However, in most states, state and local health inspectors conduct food service operations. Now, the inspection process. So when it comes to food service inspections, when you have an establishment, inspections are required for all operations. Let's an operation know if it is meeting minimum food safety standards based on local or state regulations. And it's often based on the 5 risk factors in FDA public health interventions. Now, risk designations for evaluating facilities. First, they look at priority items. And under priority items, you're going to see prevent, eliminate, or reduce hazards. Example, hand washing. Then you have your priority foundation items, which support priority items. So, example, soap at a hand washing station. Then you have your core items. Relate to general sanitation, the facility, equipment design, and general maintenance. Example, keeping equipment repaired. Inspection frequency varies. So state and local authorities use different frequencies. Now, frequency can differ based on the area, operation, and food served. Risk factors can affect frequency, like operation size and complexity, inspection history, service to high-risk populations, and regulatory authorities' workload. Now, before an inspection, make sure staff know who is in charge of food safety. Also, be aware of your company's policies for inspections. During an inspection, ask the health inspector for identification. And that is, you prohibit entry through the back without the correct identification. Ask for the reason for the inspection. Do not refuse entry. You always cooperate with the inspector by taking notes, and keep your relationship on a personal level. And also, when it comes to documentation, be prepared to provide requested records. Now, after the inspection, you discuss violations and timeframes to make the corrections. Now, you have to understand the reason for the violation. So overall, be sure you as a restaurant owner or retailer understand the violation. Keep copies of the report on file. Act on all deficiencies within the required timeframes. Determine the causes and take corrective action. Again, the inspector is not your enemy, they're your friends. So you, in some instances, have to revise or create procedures with your staff or for your staff. Communicate with staff. Always retrain staff. Now, an inspector may close an operation when there is significant lack of refrigeration, backup of sewage into the operation, emergencies such as fire or flood, significant infestation of pests, long interruption of electrical or water services, and clear evidence of a foodborne illness outbreak that was related to the operation. Now, the benefits of self-inspections: safer food, improved food quality, cleaner environment for staff and guests, and of course, higher inspection scores. Now, you're going to have some standards like you want to maintain room temperature for your dry goods. If you have table mounted equipment, you want to make sure that it's mounted 6 feet off the table. If you have shelving, you want to make sure that the shelving meets the requirement of the 6 inch minimum off the floor. And with your refrigeration units, check the temperatures and have a hand washing station in your prep area, and make sure you have a sign that says wash hands. Make sure you maintain the correct temperatures of 180 degrees on your dishwasher. Have a 3-compartment sink. Wash, rinse, and sanitize. Those are what the inspector will be looking for. So when conducting a self-inspection, use the same type of checklist that the regular authority uses. Again, use the same information, which is a checklist that the regulatory authority will use. Identify all risks to food safety, and after the inspection, meet with staff to review the problems. So that means when it comes to cleaning, you have to maintain cleanliness and have a slow day where you can give your restaurant a good clean. Because good health means you also keep your equipment much longer. Because when equipment breaks down, plumbing breaks down, you're going to lose money in your restaurant. And that's going to be cause for an outbreak. Also, the benefits of a self-regulation in the restaurant and food service industry. You have increased understanding of foodborne illnesses and its prevention, improvements in the safe design of equipment and facilities, industry-wide initiatives to maintain safe food during processing, shipment, storage, and service. And also you're going to have efforts to make food service laws more practical. Again, when it comes to having any type of food service establishment, and there are a number of individuals out there who would love to own a restaurant. It sounds good on paper, but in the end, you're going to have to deal with the health department. You're going to have to deal with building codes. You're going to have to deal with plumbing. You're going to have to deal with traffic flow. You're going to have to deal with corrective action, refrigeration, heating. You're going to have to deal with customers. You're going to have to deal with food costs. You're going to have to deal with knowing what the danger zone is. The danger zone is 41 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. You're going to have to basically calibrate your thermometers, either at 32 degrees Fahrenheit using the ice method, or you want to boil your water to 212 degrees. You're going to have to understand types of characteristics of contaminants: physical, biological, chemical. Now, what is an example of a physical contaminant? Well, if you have a can and you open it and there are little metal shavings in that can after you utilize your can opener, wood chips, that's an example of a physical contaminant. What's an example of a chemical contaminant? Well, detergent in your food. What's an example of a biological contaminant? Something like salmonella. In fact, bacteria, which is biological, has the highest rate of foodborne illnesses. So what I am saying to you is you want to have a smooth running establishment. Make sure you're Servsafe certified as a manager. And it's also good if you had a person who works with food who's also Servsafe certified. But most of all, when it comes to staff, make sure you understand proper food service regulations. Because if you don't, your establishment will get shut down. And if you don't believe me, you look around at some of these small mom and pops restaurants that are out of business today because they had no standards. If you want customers to come to your establishment and you don't want to see the health inspector, because a health inspector will show up and they're not going to tell you when they're going to show up. That's why you should always follow the principles. Don't stray. They're in place for a reason. Because at the end of the day, your job is to reduce foodborne illnesses. And that concludes this topic on food service regulations right here on the Mind of STEM channel. On this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. Now, if you cannot find me on YouTube, I will upload this video, just like others, to Twitter and LinkedIn. And once again, thank you for viewing and listening to the Mind of STEM channel right here on YouTube. Because on this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. Please have a wonderful and gracious evening.